With a lot of trends right now, we live in a very disposable society where you don't resole shoes anymore, you just chuck them and buy something new. You don't repair denim anymore, you just chuck them and buy something new. I think people have that same mentality when it comes to their homes, when it comes to their vehicles. For a lot of people, the house they live in, it's really just the box they come home to sleep in at night. And it doesn't really represent them as a person or the life that they live. And I see my home as a tool that helps me live a better life by adapting to meet my needs. And so I spend a lot of time adapting my home to meet my needs, my vehicles to meet my needs. And it's not just a matter of disposing of it and buying something new when something goes wrong. I was born in California and did elementary school on the West Coast largely, but in fourth grade we moved to Mapleton. My dad teaches at BYU, the local university, and so we've been in Utah County for since I was a kid largely, so high school and everything else. I started to kind of experiment with customizing just so much of my life, and so I got a 1973 Honda CL350. It's my first motorcycle, and I started to fiddle with customizing it, reupholstering the seat, changing up the handlebars, the lights, the paint, all sorts of things. And I grew a love for adapting vehicles. So after I did 5 or 6 motorcycles, I got a 1952 International pickup. A good friend of mine was working on some Internationals, and he had me redo the upholstery for his. And I kind of grew a love for the brand, and he wanted me to be the other guy with an International here in the community. So we found a really neat one that was a body style I'd been looking for. And I had never done a vehicle. I had never done anything with 4 wheels. And so that was probably 10 years ago, I think, is when we got the 52 International. And I didn't have to do a lot. It was pretty basic, pretty simple. It ran with really minor stuff. And it's interesting to think back over the past 10 years, all the vehicles I've worked on. A couple years ago, that International, the motor died. And I wanted to upgrade, and so I got a newer V8 and a transmission and a transfer case out of a later model International. And I came across this 53 International, which had a front axle. It was already 4-wheel drive. And so all I wanted was the axle, and it had a good windshield and a couple other pieces. And so I bought it for parts for $800. And as I was kind of assessing my 2 pickups, I realized that the 53 was far more valuable and far more rare. And so I ended up cannibalizing the 52, the original one, and we brought the 53 to life.
All right.
The guy who built this house, his name's Ole Berg, and this was the last structure that he built before he died. He built the home in 1909, and then he died 10 years later. He built several homes around the area. He created the local mortuary, which still exists today, and they have several locations. He got engaged with Congress. He had a cabinet shop, and so Brigham Young, the leader of the local Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, asked the guy to go finish the interiors for one of the temples down in southern Utah. And so he was always building things that were neat. And so this was the home that he built just before he died, when his family had outgrown their previous properties. And then the family moved in, the Strongs, and the Strong family was here for 100 years. And they were essentially who I got it from. Towards the end, they were renting it, and so it fell into disrepair. But it's been really neat to learn about them, because Etta Strong, who got the home in 1919, 1919, she did a lot of projects throughout the home. And there wasn't, a YouTube or Instagram or whatever to teach her how to do these things. And so she has a section in her personal history that I have where she talks about looking through the phone book on people who do concrete and asking them and learning how she could mix color into the concrete for the driveway and for their carport. And she did this in the 30s. And then she studies how to do glass block. And so she rips out cabinets and windows and replaces them with glass block around the fireplace. And learning about the people that were here and the things that they did really helps me gain a better understanding and appreciation for the environment that I'm living in and the structure that I'm living in. We have a 63 Ford unibody, which is a lot of fun. It's just a really unique body style. It's not very practical because if you load up the bed with a bunch of gravel or weight, it kind of tweaks the cab because it's all one piece of metal. So it was only in production for like 2 years because it's just not very practical, but it looks really neat and they're really rare because of it. So we've got that. And then, we did a VW pan that I chopped up and built kind of a rough frame and floor pans, and we made it into our little off-road vehicle, our dune buggy, modeled after some of the ones that were made in the 50s. And it is a late 50s Beetle, and now it's our little dune buggy. And then some other fun stuff, some tiny Honda's first production cars, a little 2-cylinder air-cooled model. It's been such a process to learn why this funny Honda is significant. When I picked it up, didn't know why it was rare, didn't know anything about why it was cool. I take it to car shows and more of these vehicles find me because of that love and that passion. I start helping other people who have the same car bring theirs to life. And so one of them ended up just landing with us. So now I have a second one that we're working on. Learning such unique, special things about these machines and about the trades that they support. It just gives you such an understanding and a depth for why these things exist, and it really kind of builds a community around these things. When I was a kid, I had just such a difficult time with authority, whether it was my parents or it was teachers. I would see that they'd made a mistake and I would think, you're supposed to be in charge. Why are you making these mistakes? And I would make their life miserable because of it. Through my scout troop, I had an opportunity to work on the staff when I was young, 13, 14. And when I was a staff member at the scout camp, and I had leadership responsibilities, being responsible for another group of 12-year-old boys, I realized that I made mistakes all the time, but I was doing my best. And it gave me a little bit of empathy for authority figures to realize people make mistakes all the time. And it's not helpful to be a little dickhead. It's great to recognize when mistakes are made, but have empathy and try to help come up with a solution. When I see things in my community that maybe seem broken, I love to take that opportunity to get to know a little bit more about why it's broken, why is this happening this way, and how can I be part of the solution. I get bored very easily, very quickly, and I just struggle with depression when I'm not working on a project. Anytime that I'm not building something or renovating something, I feel crummy. And it's funny that a lot of the renovations that we've done and a lot of the things that have kept me busy and entertained, they're sort of a coping mechanism, and I'm so glad that it turns into such productivity. What I've learned is that perfection is the enemy of progress. And I think too often we spend so much time thinking, how can I perfectly execute this thing, rather than executing things. And so I've allowed myself to make mistakes. I've allowed myself to screw things up. And so sometimes I redo things. And that's fine. You know, if I were worried about the fact that I didn't know how to build the tree house, which was one of the first projects I did here on the property, you know, I never would have built it. And now when I walk through it, yeah, it was built really poorly, but it was built 8 years ago. And the amount of things that have happened in that tree house since then is astounding. Perfection is the enemy of progress. And I think if we can realize it's okay to just make mistakes and just go for it, we are going to accomplish so much more and become more perfected in that process.